Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Thinkers Lounge. Today, I have a very special guest. His name is Samuel Isaiah, and he is nominated as one of the top 10 finalists for the Global Teacher Prize Award. Samuel, do share with us a little bit more about yourself with our audience on how is it that you suddenly gained this fame, essentially.
Well, first of all, Ching Yu, thank you for inviting me on this show. It's an honor. It's a pleasure to meet and speak with like-minded people. Well, back to the Global Teacher Prize. Well, how did it actually burst out this way? I've got no idea actually. But I think what I've been doing with my community, with my kids, with my school is something that I've been doing for the past 8 years. I've been focusing a lot on the children, focusing on providing equality in education, equity in education, and this is something that I've been building on for years. Being nominated as a top 10 finalist, first of all, I'm very humbled by it. I'm very grateful. I believe it signifies two main important things. First of all, I think it shows that in Malaysia we've got good teachers. We've got good teachers who can compete at an international stage at par with countries like the UK, America, and all that. Uh, on top of that, I think most importantly, my nomination shows how amazing my children are, how amazing Indigenous children are, Orang Asli kids are. Because a lot of times, what we have heard, what we've seen, what we have read about Orang Asli children is usually very negative stuff. It's usually about the things that they can't do, the things that they suffer. So I would like to put their success. This story is about them mostly. So I would like to put the spotlight on them of their capabilities.
Wonderful. Yeah. So what is it that ignited and sparked your desire to go onto this journey? Because it's not every day where you see people willing to pour their hearts out, their commitment and dedication, to travel 200 kilometers every single day to teach, to educate.
Well, first of all, the school is located about 95 to 100 kilometers away from my house, and the nearest residential area or small township is called Muat Zamshah. It's about 50 kilometers away from my school. So actually, the logical nearest choice to make was to stay 50 kilometers away from school. But since I'm from Kuantan and my family has been based here for a long time, and at that time I had some family commitments to attend to, I just decided, you know what, let's just travel 100 kilometers to school and back. For me, though people would like to say that it's a big sacrifice and it's something beyond ordinary, I don't see it that way. A lot of the things that I have done for the kids, be it traveling the distance, staying countless hours with the kids after school on weekends, spending my own money. I think a lot of teachers can resonate with this. A lot of teachers do this as well, and a lot of times we don't see this as a sacrifice. Uh, the word sacrifice means giving up something. uh, we don't see it, sometimes it could imply negativity, but of course we don't see it that way. Like for me personally, I see it as something that I love doing. I love traveling. It was not something that I labored through. The 100 kilometers did not feel like something, oh my god, when am I going to reach school, when am I going to get home? It didn't feel that way. So I'll not call it a sacrifice. It's something that I was blessed with, something that I'm privileged to do. And if given the opportunity again, I would do it over and over again. I was just happy doing it. However, I think this brings into perspective, what do we expect of teachers? A lot of times we expect teachers to actually go above and beyond uh, what a normal job would actually expect them to do. If you compare it to another profession, uh, you're just expected to do your job as the best you can. If it's an 8-hour job or a 10-hour job, you get it done, you go home, and that's it. But a lot of times, this teaching as a profession has always have always been put in a perspective that it's a selfless profession. Though I may agree to a certain extent to it, I also think it has gone overboard. We can't expect everybody to try and emulate what I do to that extent, to sacrifice what I do to what extent. Uh, Perhaps my family commitments weren't that much, so I didn't have to spend a lot of money with my family, so I could spend that money on traveling, you see. So everybody has got very different commitments. So I mean, this notion of selflessness can sometimes put teachers in a very negative light. We can't expect every teachers to be heroes. So what we need to expect is teachers to do a good job, be professionals in the 8 hours of 10 hours of school periods, get it done, give the best they can for the kids, and just go home. I think that should be what we should be focusing on, because the plight of teachers is not something that is an issue only in Malaysia. It's everywhere. Even in countries like the UK, even the US as well, it's the same. Teaching is one of the lowest paying jobs, but often cited as the most important job. So
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. So what point in time where you felt that this is the path and journey for me, that I'm here, I want to educate kids, and even more specifically these Orang Asli kids. Was it like just an overnight thing where you realize, oh, I've got this calling?
I don't think so. It wasn't that way for me. First of all, before I entered the profession, I never really wanted to be a teacher. It wasn't something that I thought about, that I'm going to be a teacher. I wasn't born into it and all that. It's not a fairy tale story. But I would confidently say that the children changed things for me. They changed my perspectives of what education is. They changed my views and my principles and made me a believer. So I think the heroes of the story again is the children. When I got into the school, one of the first things that happened to me was I was shocked by the stigma. I was shocked by the negativity that surrounded the community and the school at that time. So initially, I wanted to quit. I've said this multiple times that I felt like quitting, but sorry, are you there?
Okay, sorry everybody for the technical difficulties. Selangor not only no air, but apparently I know Wi-Fi also. Anyway, yes, we are back here with Samuel Isaiah. So yes, sorry, you were sharing about how is it that you found out that this path was for you as an educator?
Well, for me personally, it was a bit different. A lot of teachers have it planned what they want to do. They want to be a teacher. It's something that they dreamt of. But I think the moral of my story, or the value that I can add is how I actually found that passion. I think that is very crucial. Finding that passion is actually very, very crucial. It could happen once you're in college. It could happen once you're in university. For me, it happened way after I got into school. When I got into go in touch with the community, go in touch with the students. So yeah, it happens in various ways. For me personally, I think teaching is a very tough job, mainly because it not only requires skills and expertise, but it also requires passion. Because you're dealing with human beings, you're dealing with children, and when you get angry or you react wrongly, it affects the child. If you say something wrong, it affects the child. It affects students as well. So I think that's one of the main reasons why uh, teaching is a very tough job. So I think it's crucial for us to find our passion. For me, I found it when I was with the children, when I was with the community.
Okay, so is there a particular story when you were teaching these kids, and then uh, what was it that really melted your heart and say, I'm in the right place?
Well, I think the acceptance that the children showed me, the community showed me. I was different. I Initially I did not want to be there, so I felt that this was not what I want to do. In college, I felt that after I finished college and university, I wanted to go to a top school, where I could rub shoulders with professional teachers, learn from them, climb up the ladder. But they changed it in a way, like how they reacted to me, and I saw that I was there for a purpose. When I got in touch with the students, when I got in touch with the community, when I started doing things differently, the relationship of trust developed between me and the children. So it happened not instantly, but it was a gradual thing. And I think I was patient throughout the process. I was patient enough to listen to the kids. I was patient enough to listen to the community, and that actually improved not just my practice as a teacher, but overall, Samuel as a human being.
Mm, okay. So what are the biggest challenges that you see the Orang Asli face?
Well, generally in Malaysia, the challenges that the indigenous communities faces is a lot. There's a lot, and this we need to understand that these challenges are complex because most of the times they're interconnected and interrelated to one another. So it's from the basic necessities such as infrastructure, poverty in certain parts of Semenanjung Malaysia. Accessibility is also an issue. Electricity, clean running water, poverty, where a lot of them, if I'm not mistaken, 60% or 70% of indigenous communities in Malaysia live below the poverty line. So these are prominent challenges that teachers who are actually sent into rural areas and Orang Asli schools are bound to face. It's common. But for me personally, the main problem that I faced was the negativity, the stigma, where it was implied to me that the kids are not going to learn because they are Orang Asli kids, that they can't learn because of that. So that was my biggest challenge. Uh, it was not something physical, but I think the psychological barrier that I had to overcome with the children, mainly because they themselves end up believing in it, you know. So that was the biggest challenge for me: how to make these kids believe in themselves, how to make these kids uh, want to learn. You know, when we were kids, we probably didn't have a choice. We were forced to go to school anyways. And another challenge, another problem, or another issue with Orang Asli schools is also dropouts. Dropout rates are extremely high, attendance rates are extremely low. So these are the issues that we Orang Asli schools face consistently. But for me, the main one was the negativity and the perception, negative perception.
Hmm. Okay, so how is it that you uh, manage to instill that belief into them and really build up their confidence?
Well, for me as a teacher, initially I just wanted to make education as something that was meaningful to them. And I realized it had to be something that they were involved in, something that they were engaged in, something that they could experience. Because a lot of times teaching and learning is portrayed or is delivered to the Orang Asli people as something uh, that is disconnected from their lives, disconnected from their culture. You know, it's usually just rote learning, exam based, completing the syllabus, get it done, write it in a book. So a lot of times these elements of learning do not relate to their lives. So I knew that I had to go away from the ordinary. I knew I had to go away from the mainstream expectations of what education is. So I tried to incorporate technology. I incorporated music. I incorporated, the environment as well. So I made learning something that they wanted to do, and I think that made all of the difference.
Hmm. Okay, so you really brought the experiential learning and for them to really be able to relate and bring it contextually.
Yes, because I think I observed. Uh, I mean, research shows that uh, the indigenous communities throughout the world, they view education very differently. It's not something that's competitive. It's usually cooperative. You know, it's that element of their social construct that actually defines learning for them. But for me, I had to learn from them. I observed what they were doing, and I think this is crucial because a lot of times we want to try to help indigenous communities, for example, but we go there with our glass full. You know, we don't want to learn, we don't want to see it from their perspectives. What do they need? So yeah, listening was probably one of the best things that I did with them as well. Listening to the children, listening to the community, and making myself vulnerable. You know, I didn't portray myself as someone that knew everything. I portrayed myself as someone who wanted to learn with them.
Mm. I think that's a very crucial point which you share, where teachers have to enter the room with their minds open as well, and not assume that they know everything. And
Right. Well, I mean, it's hard not to do that. You know, to be very fair with you, it's tough not to do that because we are taught in different ways. We are taught theories, we are taught we are taught frameworks, we are taught the syllabus, we are taught about curriculum, we are taught about assessment, we are taught about all this, and for some reason everything is depicted to be something that's perfect, something that's very linear. So when we come to real life and we see that there's a huge disconnection, hey, the theory says it's supposed to be this way, but now it's like that, we we disengage, we find the task at hand very impossible, and and we start to question ourselves, am I doing it right, are the theories right, are the theories wrong? So it's not easy, it's easier said than done, because we are dealing with human beings again, we are dealing with children, who want to explore, who want to make mistakes, and a lot of times we want to be there for them to stop them from making mistakes, but yeah, it's tough. And I actually empathize with teachers in urban areas as well. A lot of times they are not given the autonomy to engage with students. They're not given the autonomy to do what their students like doing, because there are other factors as well. Factors like what their parents expect, what the society expect, what do professional parents expect is very different. If I were to like start teaching music and ukuleles in Kuala Lumpur, for example, and use that to teach English, people will question my methods. What are you doing, instead of giving them spelling, or instead of giving them exam questions. So these perspectives, and I think civil servants, or public servants like teachers, for example, who's always in the public eye, education is something that everyone has something to say about, and that makes our job a lot harder than it
Mhm.
actually is.
Yeah, I guess we find that challenging uh, within the environment of education when people are so focused with the how rather than the results, which is essentially what's most important. And I think one thing you pointed out is that you're constantly adapting to the environment, to the feedback that the kids are giving you on whether your methods and ways are working. So you mentioned about vulnerability as an educator, not being the one who knows it all, right? Because I understand, like what you shared, there are pressures as well to feel like, oh, you must know it all and share it with conviction. So how do you personally balance that, where you still maintain yourself as that figure where your students are able to trust you as the person to go to for information and guidance, and at the same time being open and vulnerable to not knowing.
I think teaching in the way I viewed it is more than just me uh, giving knowledge. I wanted to build a relationship with the students. So when with the intention of building a relationship with them, you care about them more than just what they do in the exam. You want to be with them. You want to be that person who chats with them. And they see this. This is not something that you can fake. It's not something that you can create. It's something that you build over time. And building this requires more than just it requires a lot of other factors, patience, kindness, or love. And like I said, time. I think the most crucial element that I would like to talk to you about is time. In a lot of occurrences and a lot of instances, teachers are not afforded the right time. They are pressured to deliver results right away. For my students, and I perhaps I'm just speculating. Perhaps the expectations were low. When the expectations were low for orang Asli students at that time, nobody expected results right away. So that afforded me all the time in the world to actually make sure to try out different techniques to see whether it worked. If it didn't, I improved it. If it didn't make any difference, I threw it away. I tried something else. I developed a relationship with them. I created a whole environment that is actually conducive towards learning. So these kind of things require time, and it's not about just we sometimes have this obsession of coming up with one solution or quick fix. you know I took time to understand the kids first. I took time to understand the problem first, instead of just going for solutions right away. Some of our bosses, I'm sure you have heard this phrase before, where they will tell you like, don't come to me with the problem, I want solutions. But we fail to understand the problem, and the solution often very short lived. It's always just for that moment of time. At the end of the day, there's no sustainability. The kids don't really learn. So I took my time. I took my time and I made the best of it. And besides taking my time, I was very reflective throughout that time. I reflected along the way. I was very critical of what I was doing. I was very critical on the impact on the students. I assessed the students continuously. So these are the elements that I focused on.
Yeah. So, so when you touched on the matter of time, uh, as we know, e- well, even without like the pressures or expectations, different children, different people in general have different learning curves, right? How is it that you personally adapt your teaching to a classroom of so many different students, but ensure they are on the right track at the same time, or
Mm.
to be able to keep up to the pace?
Well, first of all, I think it depends on what kind of principles a teacher has. Um, what I believe is learning is something that's meaningful, it's something that's collaborative, it's something that's communicative, it's something that they experience, it's something that students can engage in. A lot of individuals don't believe this. They believe that's not learning. Even some people go to an extent to say that, oh, when you're having fun, you're not learning. So it's from those principles that I bring through whatever I do in the classroom, be it the projects that I do with my kids, be it the 21st century learning, be it the innovations that I actually design with them. Now, back to your case question, actually, what I was trying to imply is without these principles, if someone were try to emulate what I do, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. If someone, let's say you are teaching a classroom full of like 20 other kids and you want to do the same thing. No, maybe Sam do it. Maybe this is like the secret recipe for my kids to learn. You do it, but you do it with the wrong principles, with the wrong beliefs, it's not going to work. Because for me, it was not just a supplementary project. To me, whatever I did worked in unison. They helped each other out. I mean, the programs, I mean, they catered to different areas of what the students needed. And eventually in time it worked because I truly believed in it. It was not just a side project, kind of like, let's just get them excited for learning by playing music. No, for me, playing music, playing the ukulele, teaching them the instructions in English, getting them to go through the vocabulary and all that, singing those songs was learning. That was our learning process. So it depends. It really, really depends on an individual whether it works or not. And that's why I feel that a lot of times, a lot of policies, a lot of new ideas that have been introduced for schools, for teachers, they are very short-lived because at the end of the day, the principles of whoever who is administering these policies is just of the old. You can't see progress if what you believe is still of the old. So
Hmm. Yep, that's true. So one of the things you mentioned was that you're highly critical of yourself and at the
mm,
same time very self-reflective,
mm,
and you also create that framework upon your students as well. So one of the challenges that I think teachers face is how is it that you hold your students accountable and be firm with them, at the same time give them room to make mistakes and flourish and learn.
well, for me to get to a stage where I'm actually a facilitator in the classroom took a long time. For me to allow the students to have autonomy to take charge of their own learning by themselves took some time. Uh, in the first month, for example, if I started with project-based learning, getting the kids to work in groups, communicating with one another, solving problems, etc., they wouldn't know what to do because mainly because I was the only one who was actually doing this kind of methods. But in time, through perseverance and through being reflective, it actually made a difference in whatever we were doing. So back to your question, I think getting the kids to understand and managing this their difference in levels, these are all learning techniques. We have been taught, teachers are being taught of differentiation strategies, for example, and different types of assessment activities. Now bringing theory into practice, that is what teachers are supposed to do. How we adapt to our situation, how do we adapt to the needs of our students, that is very, very crucial. And I would say for me, it was mostly about being brave enough to try, and being brave enough to actually reflect and criticize myself for the sake of improving. Because if you try it without being bold, when you fail, you just want to quit right away. So I wasn't that way. When it didn't work out, I went back and said, okay, how can we improve this? How we can change it? I did not let go of my principles just because it didn't work out at the first time. It's easy for that to happen. Teachers who actually attempt, or educators who actually attempt different ways of teaching their kids, oh, it didn't work out. I tried it last week, it didn't work out. I only tried it for a week, and that's it. I'm going back to the old, to my ways of old. It doesn't work that way.
So yeah, so like what you said, having courage and being brave to take action, make mistakes, and improve along the way.
Mhm.
What gave you that courage?
Well, I think seeing my children improve was the best indicator. I saw them. I saw them gain confidence. I saw them gain self-belief. They were enjoying the lessons. I mean, teachers can see this. When you're teaching anyone, even if you're teaching adults or whoever it is that you're teaching, even for in the first 30 minutes of the lesson, you can see whether they're enjoying it or they're not enjoying it, whether they are actually paying attention or they're not. It's something. So seeing these signs spurred me on. Attendance was improving, their results eventually showed. And for me, though the results is something that I am proud of, I wouldn't lie by saying that it's not something I'm proud of, but I'm most proud of the process. How they actually evolve through that process. That's something that I'm really proud of. So seeing them improving was a huge boost to me. Yes, of course, but initially it didn't work right away. That's what I'm saying. I believed in my principles. I believed this was going to work no matter what. I just needed to stick to my plan, trying it, being reflective. If something wrong, I've got to improve it. If I don't know, I went and read. I discussed with people. I got feedback from my mentors. I spoke to these people. I networked with people. So that realization made me, that reflective practice that I actually did throughout my career was what made it happen that way. If I was resilient but I was not reflective, it would not work. If I was reflective but I do not have those principles, it will not work as well. If I was reflective but I was not making the right decisions to improve my practice, it will not work as well. So it's a process, it's a system. And it's not about, a lot of people have come to me and say, what book do you use? I say, yes, I do have certain modules that, but those modules would not work if I did not use, if I did not have my principles, if I did not teach them the way I did. Everything has to come together. The students will not do well just because of a book. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Mm.
I definitely agree. There's nothing quite like it, but the human's touch,
Yeah.
or to put it further, a teacher's touch, right? In this case. So I would just like to go to the comment section.
Oh, you
Uh,
got comments. Yeah,
yep,
go.
yep. So over here we have Edison Chong, who shared with us, "Thank you, Samuel, for bringing back the true meaning of a teacher, the soul of an educator." And we've got
Oh,
Ma Ibrahim, who says, "I so agree with Sam. It's not about methods. We must truly have good principles first. Then methods and activities must then be built upon the principles you hold. Each teacher must find who they are as teachers."
mm.
And we have Betty Lowe, who shares, "The most important people who made me who I am today are my teachers. Their personal inputs on top of what's taught in the books are priceless. I'm proud to say that I am still in touch with my primary school teachers even after 2 decades." Well, okay, what's this? "Be amazing. Nothing can stop you for being who you are. Thank you for
Oh,
your
wow. Thank
sacrifice."
you.
Wonderful.
First of all, I'd like to apologize to everyone. I'm a bit very fatigued today. I had a long day, I was working on my assignments. I think I slept at, what time did I sleep yesterday? I think I slept at 7 a.m. working on stuff. And then I woke up again at 12. I only had about 4 hours of sleep or so. So it has been a really long day. I'm usually very upbeat and going,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
oh, sorry to you. Sorry.
No problem,
But
man. We still feel your heart and energy.
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's
Appreciate it.
that's
Appreciate it.
there's a certain quality to that where even if you're tired, that resonance just comes through you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Thanks, man. Thanks.
it's
Appreciate
wonderful. Yeah.
it.
So you have certainly changed the lives of many of these kids over the past 8 years. Am I
Mhm,
correct? Right.
mhm,
And one of the things that you've been actively pushing is really the accessibility to education. It was reported that you helped to crowdfund for laptops and VR. And I believe, especially during these challenging times during COVID, where learning is now shifted online,
mm.
do you see that especially challenging for the kids?
Yeah, definitely. I think infrastructure is a thing that we need to address right away. I this might happen. I mean, in rural areas like Orang Asli communities and in Sabah and Sarawak, they don't even have connectivity. So it's impossible for us to speak about digital learning and online classes and all that when we have such a huge divide. Uh, Even if in Orang Asli communities, yes, they have phones, they might have tablets and all that, but a lot of them don't have enough. They probably have one smartphone for the whole family, so it's impossible. So when learning becomes something that's impossible, no matter how fancy, what fancy techniques or platforms that we have, it's just going to be pointless. If you get what I'm saying. So I think infrastructure needs to be addressed, and the pandemic has actually widened the gap significantly, between students who can afford having their own personal computer, own personal laptop, uh, steady internet connection, with students who don't. And uh, I remember because of the MCO, where schools were closed for 3 months before. I think it was March until June. It impacted a few Orang Asli communities that I know of really, really, really badly. A lot of them lost their source of income. And if you're speaking from the aspect of education, a lot of them, because they can't have any learning at home. So there was no books, there was no computers. The teachers did their level best by sending WhatsApp messages, worksheets and all that. But of course, you can't assess how effective those lessons were. We can't. So it's really, really tough. Sometimes I get very offended when people just keep on speaking about, oh, let's talk about this fancy method, that fancy method. But if you look at kids in rural areas in Borneo who don't even have the basic necessities, it's just so unfair. And for me, back then when I did this crowdfunding, it was because of that. I felt that uh, my children deserve the best. How can I see my children without these facilities? I had a vision in my head where I wanted the experience in the classroom, the facilities in the classroom with my kids were equivalent to an international school event. So I had that in mind. We need to provide them with the best learning opportunities possible. But at the end of the day, Ching Yu, for me, I mean, let's talk pre-COVID. All right, pre-COVID, uh, technological gadgets, if teachers are able to connect with students in the classroom, gadgets like this are just mere tools. They are tools. It's highly dependent on how teachers use them. I've seen teachers, I've seen certain educators and teachers complain saying, oh, my school does not have internet connection. That's why we can't do this kind of learning that you do with your kids. And they say, no, I did it way before we had internet connection. I did it way before we had all these gadgets and equipment. So it is the teacher who actually makes or breaks that tool, who can use it effectively or not. Uh, we shouldn't be reliant. But if you're looking at a post-pandemic world like right now, where we are going in and there was no MCO last week. Now schools are all closed again. There's so much uncertainty. Then we definitely need to provide them with the best infrastructure possible. If not, it's just going to be very impossible. Learning becomes something that's almost impossible for them. Mm.
Yeah, I mean it's good to see that uh, you're one of the few teachers out there who's really taking the initiative to go beyond your call of duty to make education accessible to your kids, and to be able to raise funding and give them access, that is definitely commendable. So
I
one
think
of
it was a collaborative effort. I saw a need, and I think for teachers, again, like just now I said, it's more than just completing the syllabus and all. For me, it felt like I shouldn't ignore these problems. A lot of the ideas that came from my innovations, using ukuleles, using the environment and all that, is because I saw a problem and I refused to ignore it. I could have, for convenience, I could have, but I refused to do so because I realized that, though I could, let's say if I spend 4 hours a week or 5 hours a week, 5 hours a week teaching them English in the classroom, following my timetable as a teacher, going into class, teaching them the best that I can. If I did that, yes, perhaps we could have a certain amount of impact, but I knew my students needed more because to them English is just so distant, they just don't have it, they don't use it in the kampong, they don't use it in the forest. I just knew I had to take that extra effort, and you throw in the issues of poverty, inequality and all that. I just knew I had to do it. So I just couldn't ignore those problems. I just knew I had to do something about it.
and to give an idea of the kind of impact that Samuel has done to these kids is he's managed to raise the school's average pass rate in English from 30% to 85%. Now that is definitely an amazing feat. And we have a question that came in from Nora Shikin. She says, "Hi Samuel, congratulations on your achievement. Can you share with us how do you get MOE and even other ministries to understand your pursuit?"
How do I get them to understand my pursuit? Wow, I think initially back in 2012 when I first started, the types of learning that I actually introduced to my students were not common. Believing in meaningful learning or doing projects with the kids was something quite foreign back then. The mainstream view was always about drillings, going for exam answering techniques and all that. But I realized that that was not what my students needed. So initially there was resistance because of the lack of understanding. But in time, the Ministry of Education has shown a lot of support in what I've been doing. We have realized that education is about values, it's about being communicative, it's about being collaborative as well. So they have embarked on a journey to change. And this was also shown, if I'm not mistaken, last year, where the Ministry of Education refused to actually announce the GPS or the Great Purata Sekolah, so for UPSR, for example, they wanted the kids to be celebrated as a way that this is a journey of learning, not just about the numbers. So we are trying to change the culture, but of course, it takes some time and it takes everyone to buy into that idea that this is the learning that we are going towards. Again, it's back to principles, and it's hard to change. It's really, really hard to change. What I do with the kids and what a lot of teachers are trying to do right now using similar methods to what I do is tough. And it's human nature to actually want to make your job as easy as possible. If you had if you had the opportunity to make your job as easy as possible, you would do it. That's what people do. People want to do. But for me, I had a certain set of beliefs that it has to be done this way, and the students need to be engaged in it. So as far as what MOE is concerned, of how they have shown support, and I'm really grateful, honestly.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so one of the things that you shared recently in a recent tweet, you quoted from your platform, Education,
Right.
preventing our young minds from explicitly discussing political matters in school, a place for children to learn and grow under the supervision of dedicated teachers, has grave repercussions. So yes, could you expand more upon that? Right.
Wow, I think the article was co-authored by myself and a friend of mine. Her name is Zell. So we were exploring the notion of political education in schools, and uh, why we need our young ones to actually start talking about politics in school. why we need them to be criticizing policies, why do we need them to extract policies, dissect it, put it apart, take sides, see which one works best for community. Because I think in the educations of civics and citizenship education in school, civics is often looked at, is often presented without that political element. But that political element is actually very crucial in civics education. It makes us better citizens. If we as citizens can actually decide the best policies for us, if we can critique and come together, and be very objective about what we want as citizens, we would eventually make Malaysia a better place together. And I believe this is what we need to bring into schools. And in the previous article, that was the second article, we wrote a previous one before, where we actually suggested that this should start with teachers as well. Teachers should be trained to how to encourage this kind of conversations in the classroom. So that was a side thing that I was doing with a friend of mine, and we realized that we need to talk about things. And platforms like yours, the Thinkers Launch as well, would actually encourages these kind of things to happen. I believe we need to talk more. We need to be critical. We need to encourage discourse, and I think we're heading in that direction, which is great.
Wonderful. So you see that there is would you say there is a certain level of on the ground demand for critical thinking within the school curriculum that is pushing that progress?
Well, there is a demand for critical thinking, of course, but how do we achieve critical thinking? That's what we need to understand. How do we achieve how do we actually create students who are problem solvers? If the answer is drilling, then we are just missing the point again. We get critical thinkers, we produce critical thinkers by putting them in situations that would actually encourage them to think. So this is what we need to do. We need to put students in this kind of tight spots so that they can challenge their minds, they can challenge one another's views, one another's opinions, and come up with possible solutions or possible policies and all that. So this is what we need to do. We need to put students, we need to create an environment for them to actually be critical. Critical thinking is not about answering critical questions or something like that. We had the kebat, kemahiran berfikir, or HOTS, higher order thinking skills and all that. Yes, but that comes from actually being put in situations that actually encourage that.
Okay. So right now we see that with what's happening with COVID,
Right.
there's a generation of children who essentially will be lagging behind. I mean, would you say so? With like recently, I think SPM has been delayed for 3 months or so. So we have a generation that's lagging behind. What would you say that parents, educators, teachers, and students need to know to be able to help this generation go through these challenging times?
Well, I think these are unprecedented times. You've never seen something like this before. Students are, a week ago they're in school, now they're not. A few months ago they were to take their exams this year, now they're taking it next year. So things are very flexible, and I think this again highlights the need for us to create students who are able to adapt to this kind of uncertainties. Now we need to create students who are able to be critical thinkers again, because nothing is linear anymore. It's not about completing 12 months of school. At the end of the 12 months you're going to sit for exam. It's not that anymore. And of course students these days, they need a lot of support. Even myself, I'm doing my my online classes right now and staring at the computer for class for about 3 hours. It just takes a lot, it takes a lot of effort. I need to pay a lot of attention. So I think there's something that everybody can learn from this together. I pity the current generation, yes, because we've never gone through this before. But I think if we come together and we collaborate and we share our expertise, we be there for one another, not trying to put each other, everyone, everyone these days we are trying to put teachers on the spot, saying that, oh, teachers should do more. Everybody should do more. We need to do this together. You can't expect teachers to do it alone. You can't expect hospitals or doctors to do it alone. You need to pick up our own stuff and then actually, get things done for ourselves and collaborate with one another to get it done. I think that's what I would like to say.
Wonderful. And how is it that you have translated your teaching methods and adapted it online to ensure that the students are engaged and really get the lessons that they need to learn?
Well, if it's for my students, we don't have that opportunity, unfortunately, because of the lack of infrastructure, of the lack of facilities mostly. So what the school has been doing, what they did in March to June was to actually um, hand deliver, or get the parents to come to school to pick up books or worksheets and modules. That's the best that the schools could do, and then get the kids to send it back, and the teachers will actually assess them if they do send it back. So these are the challenges that we have faced. Like I mentioned earlier, we need that infrastructure, but it's not as easy as it sounds. It's not just about taking a laptop and giving it to a family. We need to make sure that they are able to maintain it. We need to make sure that they have money to actually get internet for it. So there's a lot of things that actually comes into place, and I I hope the government does more. I know they're doing a lot, but yeah, as a teacher, working with the community for the past 8 years, I have only their best interest at heart. So of course, I want my kids, the community that I teach, the Orang Asli community, to receive more than everybody else. But of course, when you're looking at it from an economic perspective, it might be a bit different. So I really, really hope that they get more help.
Mm, okay, yeah. So hopefully, with your exposure, we're able to bring more attention to the areas in dire need. Uh, and what are one of the things that keeps repeating throughout this session is you talk about principles, the
Mm-hmm,
importance of principles.
mm-hmm.
What are the principles that you instill with your kids, your students, to become better students and essentially become better people?
Wow, like because I teach primary school kids, right? So I think one of the challenges with Orang Asli communities is they lack confidence. They don't know what their potential truly are. When they don't know their potential, they don't really know what they can do and what they can achieve. So a lot of the projects and a lot of my lessons is about them fulfilling and finding their potential. And once they see their own potential, they get excited. They have that self-belief. So learning and doing what they do with me is something that comes willingly. It's something that they willingly want to do. So it has, I remember when I was actually doing this email exchange program where I got the kids to write emails to volunteers across Malaysia, adults mostly. And a lot of times what teachers struggle with is to get their students to want to write. But because they were actually communicating with someone and they saw that there was an interaction going on, they were really excited. The reverse happened. Instead of me going after them to get them to write, they were coming after me because they wanted to write more emails. So that happened, and it happened gradually. It happened because they saw meaning in what they were doing, and that actually made the whole difference.
Mm, I think you really hit the nail right there where you said meaning. They found meaning in it.
They found meaning in what we were doing. It's hard to do that. It's really, really hard. I mean, you could, to get students to come to school or want to come to school, okay, I can provide them with television, or give them some candy and they would want to come. But why are they actually coming to school? Are they coming to school because they want to learn? We don't really know. And for Orang Asli kids, mostly when they don't see significance or any value in what they're doing in schools or in classrooms, they just quit. They just don't come.
Mm,
I mean, back in the day, maybe for you as well, when you went to school, you didn't like a certain teacher, you didn't like what was going on, but you didn't have that opportunity, or you didn't have that like luxury to actually quit, because you get into trouble with your parents. But for my kids, that could happen at any time. So I
mm.
needed to ensure that they understood what they were doing, that they were a huge part in what we were doing in the classroom. So when they felt that, when they saw meaning in what we were doing, everything else that came after was not impossible already. It was very possible.
Wow, wonderful. Helping being able to tap into their why, their personal why, and
Hmm.
instill in them to really draw them into your classroom. I
Yeah,
think that's
because
very
when we
powerful.
try to define issues or we try to define problems, we only often look at it from our own perspective. we fail to see from the people perspective, from the kids that we're trying to help, or whoever that we're trying to do it for that matter. So yeah, like again, like I told you earlier, listening, building that relationship of trust. Though it takes time, I think it brings forth significant results.
Yeah. So and now we've talked about the principles for students. What would you say are the key principles that you hope to see in every single educator from your personal experience?
Wow, I hope teachers who actually teach do it from the heart. I always say this thing that this line that I always use. I say that I believe we need good pedagogy to teach, but I also believe in the pedagogy of the heart. What I mean by that is it's a combination of skills and passion and love. It must be that too. I've seen teachers who are extremely skillful, very skillful in whatever they do. They have the right resources, they have the right connections, but they do it without heart. At the end of the day, they just get very burnt out, very tired, and teaching becomes something that's very laborious. Like, oh my God, we have to go to school again, those kind of things. I've seen a lot of teachers who are actually very passionate. They love what they're doing, but they lack skill. So we need both. But I think the most detrimental one to not have is passion, because if you don't have that love for the kids and for the love of teaching, it's just going to be a very, very long, laborious day at school with the kids. You can get very angry very quickly. That's why I don't know whether you have experienced this. I've experienced teachers getting very angry in the classroom, so screaming for no reason. Yeah, it happens. So I,
Okay.
I hope teachers find their passion, find it back again if they have lost it. So
Yep, wonderful. And hopefully through our session and just by following your story, a lot more teachers, their passions are reignited or ignited further
but
to.
they do need help though, Ching Yu. I think they do need a lot of help and a lot of support. A lot of teachers probably feel very underappreciated in what they do. I'm probably very fortunate to be appreciated not just by my family and friends, but Malaysians through this Global Teacher Prize nomination and all that. But a lot of teachers feel very underappreciated. So we need to appreciate them, give them the support that we need. What I mean by appreciate is not just tell them, hey, you're doing a good job. No, no, no. Just give them the support. Make their job easier so that they can give more to the kids, so that you give the best to the kids. So that's that's my wish for teachers in Malaysia.
Yeah, and as I know you have to head off soon, what's your final message to the teachers and future educators out there?
I think future educators, you need to be aware that it's not an easy job. Don't take it as something that I don't have anything else to do. I might as well try teaching. That would be, I mean, but positively, that kind of what happened to me. I fell into love. I fell in love with education and teaching my kids by accident. But what I'm trying to say is, it's a huge risk. And if you don't do it for the right reasons, it's just going to come back and haunt you one day. So think about it real deeply, why you want to do this job. Uh, it comes with all the negativity, it comes with everybody looking at you, expecting great things for you. Everybody looks at you. Uh, most of the time, people look at teachers not in a positive light, but usually it's like, oh, he's a lazy teacher until he proves otherwise. It shouldn't be that way. It comes with the job. It comes with the job. So be ready. You need to be strong, you need to be resilient. And if you get sent to an indigenous school, to a rural school, the challenges are much, much greater. So you need to really be ready for it. And if you have the right heart for it, you have the right passion for it, then nothing is impossible.
Wonderful. That's definitely a beautiful message that I hope inspires a lot more educators to come. And if you want to learn more about Samuel's pursuit, do check out his platform. It's edificationmy.com. I've dropped it in the comments section, so please do visit it. And Samuel is very active on Twitter as well. You can check out his daily thoughts and what's going on in his life right now.
I
The
usually
purpose
I
is.
usually use Twitter to observe stuff mostly. I tweet once in a while, but mostly I'm very active on Facebook too. So yeah, mostly it's Facebook, my
Yep.
personal profile as well. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah. So thank you very much, Samuel,
Thank you.
for joining us. We hope to have you back again soon and to really hear your progress throughout this journey. It's been an amazing one so far. And then you've got a milestone coming up with the Global Teacher Prize Awards. Hopefully you win that. And with that, you can bring your purpose further. And yeah, let's keep in touch, and hopefully we'll be able to work together in other fields as well to
Right.
expand.
I think the prize actually means that I've just got more and more to do. Yeah. It's not reaching. It's not about achieving another milestone. I'll just like to say that it's not about achieving
Mm,
milestones. It means that there's just more to do.
mm,
I think that motivates me to keep on going further, to try to do my best for the kids. So if it's the Global Teacher Prize, all right, it means now we're putting the plight of the Orang Asli, their capabilities of the Orang Asli in the spotlight. It means we need to work harder. We need to give more to them. So yeah, that's the way I'm looking at it.
Okay, so great. Wonderful. Thank you very much,
All
Samuel,
right.
and everybody who joined us during this live. Do follow the Thinkers Lounge on Facebook and on YouTube, and we look forward to seeing you in the next session. Thank you and good night for now.
All right. Good night. Bye bye.
Bye.